This is more of an informative video rather than an official video lesson. The topic that I would like to discuss is writing emails. Before discussing it in detail, I would like to say that despite the fact that English does not have a formal personal subject pronoun, as it may happen in many other languages, especially the Neo-Latin languages, it is in fact a language that does have different registers, as I have often pointed out in my class lessons with my students. Therefore, even though we don't have different subject pronouns and we use you for everyone when addressing someone, we must pay attention to the different language registers. So we have to understand who the person we are speaking to is. If we are speaking with someone that we don't know, or who is much older than us, or has a professional role that we are relating to, in all these cases, the polite form is advisable rather than a familiar register in language, which will be used instead if speaking with family members or with friends or with people that are our own age. There's also another difference that we have to make. When writing, the formal language is much better than the informal one, which is often used for conversation and improvised communication. Another thing that I would like to point out is that when someone tells you that the most important thing when learning a new language is to communicate and therefore to convey the message, regardless of the fact that this message should come through in correct form, and therefore pay attention to the grammar and the various language registers. I would also like to emphasize that this may be so if, for instance, you're on a leisure trip on your own and may perhaps asking for directions. Just to make an example, if you're asking where the train station is or which train to take, if you're on a platform, um, being understood is the essential aspect of the communication. However, if you are trying to present yourself in a professional setting, or you are applying for a college admission and you are required to go through an interview, it is much better to polish your English as much as possible, because language proficiency is an important requirement in order to be admitted to study abroad. Or also, and most importantly, if you are applying for employment, the way you present yourself through your language, through your speaking, is extremely important. Therefore, it's just not a matter of simple communication. You have to get across the message that you have language proficiency, that you are aware that that the language is also a way of understanding the culture of the language that is being spoken. Now, let's go and see in a little detail what are the best ways to write an email. Well, like I said, you should make the difference between a personal email addressed to family members or friends and a professional email. In this case, we are going to discuss a professional email or a formal email. The most important thing, obviously, is the subject, in which you have to write what the email will be about. Therefore, the subject line should be immediately clear as to what your topic of the email is, which means that it shouldn't be too long and it should be self-explanatory. How do you begin an email? Well, the first important thing is how to address yourself to the recipient. If you know the surname of a person, you will write Dear Mr. Brown, for instance, or Dear Mrs. Smith. And on the other hand, if you do not know the surname, it's sufficient to say Dear Sir or Dear Madam. If you don't know who you are addressing the email specifically, you can use Dear Gentleman, or more generally, to whom it may concern. It is extremely important in English to follow the title of Mr. and Mrs. by the surname of the person you're addressing in the email. It is unacceptable to just write Mr. or Mrs. It is a very rude way of beginning a formal email, but not only a formal email, even a formal conversation. If you don't know the name of the person, it's always best to address the person with a sir or a madam. I will add at the end of this very short video some links that will provide you further information, more which expand the topic, and will give you also examples of how to begin your writing. Another important thing that I think I should cover during this video is the way you lay out the email. It is always best to use short sentences and to start another paragraph if you are changing the topic. It's always annoying to see a crammed writing. It's very tiring to read. It's confusing. It doesn't give rhythm to your writing. So if you want to be how can I say, effective in your communication, and you want the recipient to take your email seriously, it is important to follow very few but specific rules. Again, don't let yourself be fooled by the fact that there's no specific personal subject pronoun. This is a very important thing for you to understand. It does not mean that you can be on the same level with anyone you are speaking to. It means that you have to learn what are the best ways to approach someone in the correct way, in the best and most polite way. So even the use of verbs is very important. And again, never start calling someone by their first name unless the person allows you to, by saying perhaps call me Jim, or call me George, or call me Jane. And that in the specific case that the person you are speaking to is someone that is older than you, that you have never met before, that is in a professional role to which you owe a certain type of respect. Likewise, if the situation is the opposite, and you are in the professional role to allow someone to refer to you, to call you with your first name, it's up to you to give the person leave. So it is best to say, call me so and so. I hope that this has been a tip that can be useful to you for future encounters, and to help you better understand how to speak and learn the language in a more proficient fashion.